Welcome to 75 Stories, a podcast created to commemorate the 75th anniversary of Normandale Lutheran Church in Edina, Minnesota.
When Deb and I were first in Edina, we were shopping for churches, and we came to Normandale as one of the several stops we would make. And normally we sat near the back and tried to hide, but two people, Lane and Garney Haugen, turned around and introduced themselves. We immediately connected. They had things in their past that overlapped with us, and they asked us to have breakfast with them, to go out the first time. And for me and Deb, normally, that might lead us not to choose a church because it's a little too fast. But Lane and Garney were just so fabulous, and it was such a wonderful morning. That's why we joined the church. Deb and I really enjoyed our full time here, but in particular in the early years, we met so many people that became lifelong friends. And one result of that was that people who were already active at Normandale would then ask their friends and acquaintances if they would join them to do this or that. So I became involved in leadership when folks I already knew who were involved in leadership themselves would say, "Would you help me with this? Would you do that?" So early on I was on council, I taught Sunday school, I aided with confirmation just because I knew people who needed the help, and they asked, and it was a joy to say yes. I had stepped away from leadership in Normandale for a while, not because I necessarily wanted to, but outside the church I had a lot of commitments. And as I've now headed towards retirement, and for the most part retired, I've upped my game with a few connections. So I got back on the foundation board when I was asked. I'm now serving on the Normandale Housing Corporation board, just sort of reinserting myself into some of those things. I'm finishing a term on council in the next couple of years, and was also asked then to rejoin the foundation board a few years ago. Probably 20 years ago, I was president and on that board, stepped aside as other really great leaders came forward. I could name most of them, but won't, and then had the opportunity to go back on a couple years ago. I think every church throughout the world, its leadership is perhaps just worried a little bit as you see statistics that say the people who identify with the church are going down, and you want so desperately to serve those people and bring them in, but creating an annual budget and funding that to do all that might be required is a really difficult task. So when I think about the future, I can think of how our current members today might say, "I've loved this place, I've been loyal in terms of my annual giving, I've answered the call when the campaigns were going on, but if I'm inclined to, I could also help create the funds that down the road will cushion the ups and downs in budgets." Now, hopefully there won't be any. Hopefully the church will grow and it will thrive and this won't be an issue. But I think if we're realists, we know there'll be good years and bad years, times when a little extra help is needed. And those of us here now could be pre-funding, if you will, the ability to address those ups and downs in our needs with a separate fund invested and maintained by the foundation.
We are so glad you joined us today here at 75 Stories. If you'd like to share your own story, please contact Christy Shepard at kshepard@normluth.org. Join us next week for another story, and share this podcast with your friends and family. We are all part of the Normandale community.